Right, good morning, welcome back. Now today, Yamaha XJR 1300 cold oil change. Now draining oil cold is definitely going to ruffle a few feathers, so there's a little bit to say about that, but before we get into it, let's pull the plug out and start the oil draining while we do. Alright, gone for the sump plug and immediately noticed that it sits almost directly above the exhaust, almost inaccessible, which is weird because you would imagine that any company would design a sump plug to be accessible, which it should be. But the reason it's not is because this is the wrong exhaust. Okay, not exactly the wrong one, but it's a different exhaust than the bike first came with, because I know historically that the 2003 XJR has two exhaust pipes, and this proves it. There's the foot peg hangers, and they both have a hanger to hang the exhaust silencer on. So yes, confirmed. This would have had two exhaust silencers, and that's the one that this bike came with, and that's definitely not standard. So somehow, somebody has changed this for an exhaust from a different XJR. The reason I know this is from another XJR and not an aftermarket system is these are ugly welded joints. So the 4x2 and then the 2x1 here, they're the typical factory welded ugly joints. Aftermarket systems are slip joints with springs or slip joints with clamps, whatever, but not like this. You'll almost never see this on aftermarket systems. So that, I would imagine, is probably from a later fuel-injected XJR, which was 4x1, and somebody's put it on the bike because they wanted a 4x1, and that's a great solution. But what it has meant is that the sump plug on this earlier XJR is slightly to the left and obscured by this later exhaust pipe, and that's going to be the first challenge of the day. Right, let's try a step ring spanner. Nope. It's about 3mm away from the exhaust on its bottom corner, so the spanner itself is a bit thick. I know. That's it. Hands up, who's ever ground a spanner down like that to make it thinner so you can get in a gap. There we are. Even though all engines have a crankcase breather, it still doesn't hurt to crack the filler cap when you're draining oil to let it drain out as freely as possible. Now, draining oil cold. Okay, I know, as I said, this is going to ruffle a few feathers, so here we go. I drained this oil cold because I replaced the clutch recently, if you're following this project, and about a pint of oil drained out of the clutch case. So the oil was about a pint low. Now, I wasn't going to go putting new oil in to top it up, then to just warm it up for an oil change. That's a waste of new oil, and there's certainly no way I wanted to put the old oil back in. So, because the oil was much lower than it's safe to run the engine, I decided to drain it cold. Just take the plug out and dump it. Right, now this bike has a standard spin-on canister type air filter there, right underneath the clutch slave cylinder, and that is not standard. Now there is a standard location for the filter. It's the old-fashioned internal type. It's a bolt on a little circular plate. You take the bolt out, lift the plate off, and there's a little paper cartridge that lives inside. We all know those. But this has had a base plate fitted where that cover used to be, and that base plate allows you to fit a spin-on canister on top. It's a great little upgrade. It makes it easier to change the filters for future servicing. So for all its good intentions at being convenient to change, you still have to move the clutch hose in order to get it out, which means break the seal, move the hose, change the filter, move the hose back in, reseal and torque it up, and then re-bleed the clutch. Not very convenient, really. Anyway, as I rebuilt the slave cylinder and I rebuilt the master cylinder, I deliberately delayed plumbing up the hydraulic hose for this very reason. Now the filter that was fitted to the bike when I got it was an HF202, which I think is a Honda filter. Doesn't really matter, it is what it is, and that's what I've ordered. Obviously if you order an XJR filter you get the little paper cartridge type, which would be no use. I've said this numerous times on numerous videos. With oil filters, they have a rubber O-ring that sits in a little tiny groove, and all you need to do is press it so the groove goes metal to metal with the flat surface, and then the O-ring is squished, expanded, and it's doing its job. It won't come loose and it won't leak. And the prescribed tightening to always go by is 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn from where it touches base. So do it up until it touches. You can feel the rubber gasket touching the base, and from there on in, 1/2 to 3/4. Because this is a modification, I can't get hold of it particularly well. You can see it's quite shrouded in engine casings, but a bit of double sticky tape works wonders. There's 1/2. There we are, just over 1/2 a turn. It's gone completely tight. So that is absolutely fine. It won't come off and it won't leak. Okay, in this instance, Yamaha see fit to use a copper washer to seal the sump plug. Obviously, a new one is a good idea. So when you order your oil and your filter to do the oil change, take the trouble to order a couple of spare washers as well. I've got one for this bike and one for stock, literally pennies. Right, being as there's no way I'm getting a socket in there or even a crow's foot, I can't torque this up. So I've just got to use a bit of experience and do it up to what level feels right. Crush the new washer and hope it's fine. If it weeps a bit, just nip it up a bit more. That'll do. Right, there we are. Now, normally you run your engine a few minutes, stop it, let it rest, let the oil settle and check it, correct it, then run it for 10 minutes up to temperature, stop it for 5 minutes, and then finally check your oil level is correct. But I'm not going to run the engine, the tank's not on it yet. I can't put the tank on because I've got other work to do that still needs the tank off. So when I do run the engine for the first time, the first job will be to check the oil level in the way that I just described and correct it to make sure it's right. Right, there we are, one oil change, all done and cold for the reasons we explained. Now, that modification to the oil filter, is that a convenience thing? Have you got that on your bike? Let me know in the comments. Is it convenient that you have to move the clutch hose, move it back again and then re-bleed your clutch? I don't know. Is the filter a better filter than the cartridge type? Is that the reason for doing it? Once again, let me know in the comments because I'd be interested to know what you think. So that concludes all the work on the engine for this project. In the next video, we're going to do a fat bar conversion, because you just should. I'll see you for that.